Okay, today's guest, we have Nick Symon, the Bantam AAA Coach of the Year, former Royals Bantam AAA coach for a number of years. And then he's transitioned into, can I drop, does anyone know this? Your new job?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah. Yeah, everyone go ahead, yeah.
He's now the assistant coach with the Midget AAA North Stars. So I'm very happy to have Nick on here today. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Blair. Appreciate it. It's good to be on. It should be fun.
Okay, well, let's start with your Bantam coaching. How did that all start?
Well, it was with the North Stars originally way back in the day, and then myself and Josh Gosling, who I used to coach with, we transitioned to the Royals, and we transitioned right into Bantam AA our first year, and was assistant coach that year, and we had a great year that first year, and Josh knew that I wanted to get my own team, and kind of just transitioned after that and took over the Bantam AA team. Josh moved on to a minor midget team within the Royals that year after, and so it just kind of taken off from there. So spent I guess total of 4 years with the Bantam AA white team, and then moved up in that AAA level and was there for 3 years. So 7 years total, 8 years total, I guess, with the Royals, or 7, bad math. But yeah, that's how kind of all got going. And spent a few years with the North Stars before that, and at the midget level too. So it's a good transition, and I love that Bantam level.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think we have very similar kind of coaching paths where you start in Bantam and really take your time going through. And I know some coaches, they seem to always just kind of be in a race, like they want to start at midget AAA or they're in a rush to get there. And that was one thing that I know when I started, I always told myself, like, take your time. If it takes 10 years to get to midget AAA, then great. Just kind of go through the process as you're ready. Was that something you kind of told yourself too?
Yeah, the exact same thing, actually, Blair. So it's funny how similar they are, because the exact same thing. I was not in a rush. We started off and had good success early on in that first few years as a head coach, and my mentality the whole time was I want to wait and do it the right way, and feel that I feel like I'm ready for that Bantam AAA level. That was obviously the goal, but the first 2 years for sure in AA, I was just like, the Royals would get back to me like, what do you want for next year? And it was just like, just give me that team back, and I'm happy to go. I think the third year, we kind of mentioned a little bit about the Bantam AAA team, but even then I was still kind of like, there's no rush to get it. And at that time, I don't even remember who was at the helm, and I think they were doing a good job, and there was really no need for much movement, and we were happy to have one more year, and it was good to stay one more year at the end of the day, because we had a really strong team that last year in AA, and won my hockey week and stuff. So it all happened for a good way for sure. And like I said, some really good players that have moved on, and funny that they played second year Bantam that year as a second year, like Chase Wheatcroft. He's now with the Lethbridge Hurricanes. He was on our team as a second year player, and Reese Bentham, who's been the captain of that midget AAA Royals team in the last 2 years, he was on our team that year too. So we were pretty privileged to have some pretty awesome players on that team, and just good people overall.
Yeah, nice. What was for you when you did get into Bantam AAA, kind of like your biggest surprise or biggest difference in coaching at that level? Because I know coaching that level it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing was just the heightened expectations, pressure, whether you want to talk about it or not. I think everyone, talk to parents and players, and at first they're like, oh, I'm not worried about the draft, I'm not worried about the Alberta Cup, I'm not worried about this and that. It's like, well, yeah, don't lie, like, sort of thing, right? So just managing all that, and that was probably the biggest difference from like a coaching. And you got to there's more preparation. You want to try to give your players more when it comes to video, and better pregame routine to try to help them get to that next level. But for the most part, I didn't think there was too much from playing and managing players and managing the team difference. Just like, I mean, on ice and strategy and stuff like that, things you can advance things a little quicker, I guess, because players think the game will better. But for the most part, at that Bantam level, it's kind of playing wise. You don't know what you're necessarily going to get on a night in and night out basis because of their age, but probably just
Yeah.
the pressures and the expectations and dealing with that was definitely the biggest adjustments.
Yeah.
And
No,
yeah.
there's a lot of external distractions at that level for those players, and they're so young, and it's wild the amount of, I think, just pressure and scrutiny that they're under. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it is unnecessary. And I talked with,
Yeah.
we had Chris Moulton on yesterday, and him and I talked about this too. Just like all the online blogs that are ranking kids,
Oh, it's crazy.
these Twitter scouts, and just how important it is for the parents that their kids are high on these lists that
Mm-hmm.
ultimately don't have a whole lot of meaning to anything.
Yeah,
Uh,
zero.
and I know when we were doing Bantam AAA, like it was a huge impact on our team. And
Mm-hmm.
I think kids that were best friends were not anymore because of it. I know parents' relationships were went in the wrong direction, and then kids' relationships with their parents. Like it, I don't think those guys realize the impact that those things have on these players. And
Yeah.
so, was it something that you guys, as you got more experience coaching at that level, was it something that you kind of looked at a little bit more and put a little bit more time into trying to manage all of that?
Yeah, I think it was just being more aware of all of it for sure. You just think of the list that kind of come through, and they're everywhere now. It's
Mm,
every year you seem to get a new email from a guy asking to help you on some rankings or get your opinion on something, and I'm always kind of like, I'm not gonna waste my time. But it's just a thing where you just have to be more aware of it. Like I said, whether people want to say they're talking about it in the background or not, it's there, and the pressures are there. And I think one thing I definitely adjusted the second and third year is just being more upfront with it. Like, these pressures are here. You need to talk about it. Let's talk about it with the parent level. Let's talk about it with the kid level. Don't just try to beat around the bush. And it's easy for us coaches to say, and people that aren't in it, what that, like, the players are, to, oh, don't worry about it. It's not going to affect you, this and that. But that's easy for us to say when
yeah,
it's kids on Twitter just as much as we are, if not more, and Instagram, and chatting with their buddies and their group texts and stuff like that. So I think it's just, let's be honest about it. It's a pressure. It's there. It's life. Do we necessarily agree that the pressures are good to have at 13, 14? Probably not, but they are there, and it's the
yeah,
reality of life. So let's just put it out front and be honest about it. And if you're feeling pressure about it, and I know parents, like, they've just kind of said, like, oh my god, Nick, like, I feel so overwhelmed of everything that's added on to this.
mm,
We were so excited to be a Royal and so excited to play at the quadrant level, but all of this added stuff of this guy reaching out and this person reaching out, it just, lots of people just told me, like, overwhelming. And then a kid doesn't say that to you because he doesn't maybe quite understand that, but he's just like you said, relationship with buddies and chatting with your buddies. Well, I was rated this and I was rated that, and
yeah,
I've talked to this team, I've talked to that team. So it's just, I think it's, like I said, just being honest and opening up those lines of communication, and I think those are how you have more of a fact or impact with players at the Bantam
mhm,
level, is those types of conversations, because they're getting good coaching no matter what, right? There's so many private guys and that are doing fantastic jobs, and skill programs that are doing fantastic jobs, and so many good coaches around various leagues, our league and CSSHL, and moving up to midget, that they're gonna get good coaching. Like,
yeah,
it's probably harder to get a bad coach when it comes to learning the game than it is to get a bad coach, sort of thing. Like, I think where coaches probably get themselves more in trouble is just management of everything, right? That's going on. So no matter what, they're probably learning, and they know the game. Their players are getting so smart these days that they're maybe not watching as much hockey, but they're starting to understand the game, and they're fine on that end. So it's just managing those pressures and
yeah.
expectations.
No, for sure. I think that's important.
Hmm.
And talking about you mentioned the CSSHL. I think that's something too that's changed for Bantam AAA guys in the last probably 5 or 6 years. you have to recruit your own players now. And that was
Mm-hmm.
something like, when we were going through it, that was never a thing. You
Mm-hmm.
knew who you had the year before, you knew who was coming, you knew what to expect, and now it's totally different. So what was that like? And did you have to really go through that process? Like, this last year you had a really strong team.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot of players, I imagine, were being chased after by the Edge or NAX, whatever those schools are, and they run great programs.
Yeah.
So how was that experience?
Yeah, I think just same sort of thing, just realizing that it's there. I think what we really try to do with the Royals and try to implement within our program was we've got we have Glen Lake and Trails West and Southwest. They're our community, right? Those are our feeder communities, I should say. Let's connect with them earlier on in the year. Like these edge guys in these schools, they're recruiting in the January, February process. And it's not like they're pressuring to make decisions at that point, but they're starting to talk and they're starting to show themselves around the rink and make themselves known who they are and stuff like that. So I was always felt that what we try to do in the second and third years is maybe have these teams out
Mm-hmm.
that Pee Wee AA level to practices with our team. So we can get them on the ice and we can kind of show them what it's like to run a AAA practice. And then I'll at the same time, after the practice, I can chat with the parents and make that connection right there, right? And say, hey, I'll send out an email and here's my contact information. Never hesitate to reach out if you have questions and concerns. So that's one thing we try to do at the Royals level. I know myself behind the scenes, it was just the same thing, right? Like, I'll just use Edge as an example because they run such a great program, and I have a lot of respect for Jeff because I used to work with him with his pep stuff, and I guess it's Power Edge Pro now. But um, I used to work with him lots, and then as soon as when he was hired at Edge, I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to make our job that much harder, right?
Yeah.
So just same sort of thing, like going to watch. I know last year, for sure, I knew how good that Glen Lake Pee Wee AA team, the Trails West team, was really strong as well. Obviously, we got a couple of players from both of those teams. We had this Southwest team out to a practice, and each of those teams ended up having a player on our team this past year with Otto and Merrick Howell from the Trails West team, Nathan Free from Glen Lake, and then Batani from the Southwest team. So it just going out, and it's crazy to think that I'm thinking about January and February I'm going to watch Pee Wee AA games, but same sort of thing, not pressuring parents or anything like that, but just making my presence felt and making sure they realize who I am and know who I am, and just opening up those lines of communication. As much as I think it's a little crazy for me to have to recruit a 13 and 14-year-old to come play quadrant hockey, I think the biggest thing that I've learned and take away from it in the last 3 years is people are just wanting to make a better decision, and
Yeah.
they just want communication. They're not looking for you to set the world on fire with promises and this and that, and I want to make you the best top six forward or whatever the case may be. They're not. They're just looking for that communication aspect, and I think that's what all these CSSHL teams have done a really good job at. I think they have some things they can offer for sure, but I think they're just doing a good job promoting their own program. This is what we can do for your kid. This is what we want to do for your kid. This is what our program is, and this is where we want to get them to. And they're just doing a better job of kind of outlining and putting in front of a plan and and an outline of what their program is going to do to help their kid. And at the end of the day, you can't blame parents and players for wanting that, right? They're just trying to make the best decision for themselves, because as much as you want to, as much as as hard as it is for guys to make it to the next level and all the above, you got to choose the right path, and it's everyone's dream. And hockey is hockey in Canada, and everyone has that opportunity and that chance at this age, right? Your future is kind of in your own hands at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously communication, something you're very strong at. I think you're willing to go outside of your comfort zone a little bit, and probably the regular comfort zone for coaches. I think that's why you have so much success have had so much success at that level, and so that's awesome to see. Good for you.
How have you seen it kind of at the midget level last few years with the same sort of stuff?
I think it's different at the midget level
Just
because
because junior.
yeah, there's that, and guys have been through it before, and parents have been
Mm-hmm.
through it already. So, and at midget, you're kind of like sometimes you're getting guys for their last year.
Mm-hmm.
Parents may not want to spend that kind of money for one hockey season.
Yeah.
And I think the midget league is still very strong, very competitive, especially in the South. Having the max tournament is something
Yeah.
that you don't get anywhere else. But I always, the same as you, like for me, it was always just build a program and they'll stay,
Mm-hmm.
and communicate your program. And it became a year-round job for me coaching midget AAA. Like this, I would take a couple weeks off after our season ended, and then it would start planning and preparing for the following year. And
Yeah.
to go out for coffee with guys or lunch or
Yep.
breakfast, whatever it was, and just see how the year went for them, see what you can learn from it as a coach, how you can
Mm-hmm.
change things. And it was just constant communication throughout the whole summer. And I think that makes them feel like you truly care about their development,
Yeah.
and you're there for the right reasons. And we are.
Yeah.
Um, and so it never really was an issue for us. And Matt Tassoni and I still rip on him because of the one, Billy Sola. He was
Yeah.
kind of in the middle of the two and was going to come to us before he ended up in Swift. And I still give Taz a hard time about that.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, it's just those guys do such a great job. Like NAX, The Edge, they do such a great job.
So good. Yeah.
And they have a lot of resources at their hand that maybe don't have at association level. But I think it's just, as a coach, you got to throw yourself out there. You got to, go outside of your comfort zone and just build a program that's good, and guys will
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree 100%.
so yeah, and yeah, we were fortunate to never really. We had guys coming more than we're leaving, so we
Mm-hmm.
were lucky. But with the North Stars too, at that time it was, and things are different there now, obviously. But we had a lot of really good support from guys like Biagio and Bruce Page and Doug Smith that were the board, so it was easy to to build that program.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole nother story now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's transition a little bit. You did Alberta Cup with just 1 year?
No, it was actually 3 years.
3, okay, yeah, never mind,
Yeah.
Blair. What's that process like? And I know, just kind of talk about the behind the scenes off ice stuff, because I know it is a lot of extra work for coaches.
Yeah, it's a lot of extra work for sure. I enjoyed all 3 years. I was just an assistant coach all 3 times. The first 2 years, I was with Josh Gosling, which was super comfortable for me because we'd coached for so long together. We did an Edmonton team, which was unique because it was the first year they did the draft
Mm-hmm.
process for the tryouts, and that year was just the Edmonton. I know they've switched that to, I think, the whole tournament now with the 6 quadrants or 6 teams, whatever they have now. But it was the first year they did it with just the Edmonton, and there was just lots of discrepancy with that Edmonton, um, with the East and the West, or however they divide up Edmonton. And there's lots of discrepancies in the past where one team was just dominant, the other team was
Yeah.
really struggled. So yeah, it was interesting. That was cool to learn and see coming into it, not knowing the players as well, not having been in the league. Then the next 2 years that I did it, well, the year after I was still in AA, but knew the players a little bit better because we were Calgary North. And then the last year I did it, we were Central with Tyrell Spitzer up at NAX there, and he was the head coach. And we had a sick team that year, but that was really unique too, just because I knew the players really well that year because coaching against them all season long, and we were fortunate to have that Airdrie group with Brett Morvik and Craig Armstrong and Keegan Slaney and Charlie Wright and all those guys, and the Red Deer guys as well, who were great. But although process, I think just looking back on it, for the most part during the year, Hockey Alberta does a good job of respecting everyone's time. They obviously need to get stuff done in preparation, but they understand everyone's super busy. So I know the first 2 years they kind of started off as like an introduction meeting. They did it in Red Deer, but I'm pretty sure the third year they even scaled it back and just did it online. So it took away some travel for everyone. And then for the most part, it's just all after that kind of introduction meeting or webinar. It's just kind of plan your own staff, and they have a couple set things that you need to get done, but for the most part, you're kind of on your own. So you just kind of, with Tyrell and Josh being the head of each team, they did a good job of, like I said, respecting time, and it was just over webinars and stuff like that and email. But once you get to the weekend, I think it's a unique experience where Hockey Alberta does a really good job of opening up the tryouts and having a lot of different guys in it. I think it, like they do a really good job of everyone, no matter the level, that every kid goes out and they love the experience. They really try to, they want that team dynamic. They want you to start building that team identity in tryouts. And with Calgary and Edmonton was a little bit tougher because you're going against another team in the same tryout sort of thing. But with Central, it was just one team, so you could really start to implement team identity and team culture stuff and team building stuff. So every kid walks away from that tryout weekend, I think, with a smile on their face, and there's always lots of good feedback, whether they make the team or not. It's tough to make that team, right? So the one thing that's made it tough was the fact that it's so broad and so wide open. You're watching so many kids, and Hockey Alberta, they really want to respect that tryout process. So they don't want you to do much behind the scenes of pre-scouting and stuff like that. And I think that's, as a coach, that's hard, right? That's hard not to do. It's hard especially when you're coming from that league where so many players play at, or even in the CSSHL, same thing. So that makes it a little difficult, but for the most part, like I said, for the trial weekend and all that, it's really good. So then you get through that and you get your team selected, and Hockey Alberta is pretty respectful and really lets the coaches make their decisions along with your coach mentor. Your coach mentor has lots to do with it, and he kind of just makes sure that you guys are following the Hockey Alberta policies, and so that's good. And then when you get your team identified and selected, you get into that team training weekend, and like same sort of thing. They I think it was a 2-day thing that very first year in the Edmonton, and then Calgary I think was just 1 day, and then Central was just 1 day as well. So you're really just trying to respect everyone's time and that sort of thing. So it's good in that sense, but it's the pressure of getting team systems and team building and team identity and team culture is even more under the microscope, just because you just have less time to do it. But at that point, everyone just knows each other so much, right? The players know who each other are, so
they've all played together before. And
yeah, exactly, right.
Did you feel like, and I know I might get in trouble for saying this, but I think just like in the coaches circle in Alberta, there's always, you kind of hear rumblings of there's the Hockey Alberta way to coach, and then there's kind of your own way to coach. Did you ever kind of come across that in those Alberta Cups where you felt like you had to change maybe a little bit who you were as a coach just to kind of meet the expectations of what they wanted from you guys?
Yeah, I got that a little bit for sure. You just have to, I think, just be more careful of what you're saying, and that's probably not necessarily a bad thing all the time either, because hockey's a high emotional game and stuff like that. But yeah, I think for me, I just kind of felt like you're just a little bit under more of a microscope, and which is not a bad thing either, because I guess you never know who's watching with so many scouts and things like that as part of that Hockey Alberta and Alberta Cup process. But yeah, you just, for sure, I felt that you just had to just adjust and just make sure that you're doing everything Hockey Alberta wanted you to. And I'm trying to think of Alberta Built and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of great things in there, but I just felt that, like, just stick to what the documents they give you, read them, go over them, and just really just stick to that. I know, especially our last year with Team Central, we call ourselves the Wranglers with Tyrell, and there were just some things that went on. It's just, I know the conversations sometimes we would have, we would just be like kind of biting our tongue a little bit and things like that. So it's part of the process, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And I respect it, and it was good, and I get it for sure. It adds another wrinkle to to everything, to the team selection, to the tryout process, to once you get into the tournament, it adds another wrinkle to it. So I guess it challenges you as a coach. But it also can make it a little difficult at times as well. So that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think it's at the end of the day, it's a learning experience and opportunity to grow and become better as a coach. So
yeah,
right on. Okay. Change gears a little bit again here. So this last year, you have a great team with the Royals. You guys have an extremely successful year. Players just throughout the year that I knew would go through a wall for you. I think nobody was surprised when you win Coach of the Year. Your reputation is phenomenal. On Twitter, you just see all the parents, their comments to you, players, everything. It was incredible. And so then to go from all that and not get moved up to probably where you should have, what was that like?
Tough, still tough. It's every day you look back on it, and 7 years with the Royals, I was bought in. I loved it, and I've got so much Royal stuff that I need to pass on to maybe Chad and some of the other guys that are going to do a great job next year, and got to reach out to them and see if they want some of this Royal stuff. But yeah, I would have never guessed it. I'll respect in that midget AAA process. There was never any guarantees with me moving up, and I can understand that process, and you got to pick your right guy. That's your flagship team. So at the end of the day, when I got the phone call to say that I didn't get that team, it sucked for sure. That was obviously the ultimate goal. I think it made a lot of sense for us to transition to that next level. We were 3 years in Bantam AAA. It's kind of how we felt after that third year of Bantam AA to move up to Bantam AAA. Like, it made a lot of sense. I know so many of the players, right? Like, lots of it would have been, I guess, the 03s would have been that graduating year next year. And those are all the guys we had in that first year of Bantam AAA. So I was ready to have some of those guys back on our team. I was ready to reach out to some guys that have left and gone to various hockey schools and this and that, and just reach out to other guys to see what they're kind of looking for junior options. So I felt really comfortable with doing that, right? Just because I know so many of the guys. I think me and my assistant coach Mike Brown kind of put together a list, because he's been had been with the Royals for 6, maybe same time 7 years, or whatever the case may be for him. And we put a list together of guys we thought would be in contention. I think we were batting about 85% of guys who we had coached, me or him. So it's pretty high percentage when you look at it overall directly of coach. So we were definitely ready for the challenge. We felt it made sense when we got the call to say that it wasn't. Like I said, it was disappointing, but I could live with it. When they told me I wasn't getting the Bantam AAA team back, that's when I think the disappointment and confusion and that really set in for myself. But there was never any talk of going anywhere else. Like, I made it known that it was mid AAA or Bantam AAA for us, and really felt that with the program we were building, we are already building that Bantam program for next year. Like you said, it starts in January. It starts early. It's really a year-long process. I was going out and practicing once a month with that Glen Lake Pee Wee AA team, to same sort of thing, build some relationships and get to know the players a little bit better. And there's some really high-end kids there, and get to know the coach really well. And then the parents and players had gone for some coffees with parents as well in that end, and had gone to watch Bantam AA games. And obviously we had Bantam AA guys up. Majority of them were first years as our affiliates, and went and watched the playoffs, like doing a ton of work to make sure that team was going to be really, really good next year again. Right. So when they told me that was tough news, and would have never, ever guessed it, and really never thought I was going to be in the situation that I was. I know, talking with a few teams of what to do next, that was one of the questions that kind of came up. Are you ready to move on? And early on, for sure, that was kind of the stumbling blocks of what to do next. I couldn't really believe I was in that spot, but it is what it is. Everything happens for a reason, and like I said, that team's they're gonna do more than fine. I know the kids and the parents that are behind that group coming up in the 06 and 07s are going to be just fine. I know the 03s and the 04s and the 05s and are going to be just fine with that midget AAA team as well. I think I got a lot of respect for Chad Scarf, who got that midget AAA team. I think he's going to do a good job there, and I think he's going to have a fairly decent team with depending on juniors and that sort of stuff. But there's just a lot of good quality people and still there and still in both programs that I know that they're all going to be in good shape. And at the end of the day, that's all I care about is the players, right? I want those 03s and those 04s and those 05s to be studs next year at minor midget and midget AAA. And then I want that Bantam AAA team with the 4 returners we were going to have in place. And then the guys moving up from AA, like those 3 Bantam AA teams were top 3 in the city for most of the season in that AA league. So they're in good hands no matter what. And I know those 7s moving up into the association. There's a lot of good things happening. It's just whether or not they continue on with building a program and not just year to year is what I wonder about.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between, I think, coaching year to year and building an actual program. It takes time. I think, like with us with the North Stars, it was a four-year process to build a program, and I didn't feel like we were done. But there's a lot of stuff I think that happens that's out of your control, and I think you've gone through that. I've gone through that now, and it's frustrating because you pour your heart and soul and everything into it, and those decisions are made, whether right or wrong. Is another story, but and I think just your answer to that speaks to just your professionalism and maturity as a coach. I couldn't imagine how difficult of a spot that was to be, and you've handled it like a pro. Like I probably had 10 messages from people that like couldn't believe that your name wasn't on any of the coaching lists, and but at the end of the day, the North Stars reap the rewards of it. So you've now joined with Jesse Hale, who's kind of running things there, and Brian Aceman's the head coach. So you've moved up to midget where you should be, and now as an assistant coach. So what has that transition been like for you already? I know it's only been a month or so, but how's that process been?
Yeah, it's been really good. Definitely a little different moving back into assistant coach role. Just the fact that just different, right? Not to say it's bad. I think it's great. I think I got a lot to learn at that midget AAA level, but Jesse's been phenomenal. I think it's a really good direction. Obviously something really new to all the associations here in Calgary, that to have a guy in that GM role or hockey ops role, whatever each association wants to call it. And I think it's really smart. I think that's what's kind of needed across the board to really help a city like Calgary try to help minor hockey. But I think Jesse's done a really good job with his communicating, his support. He definitely, I think he has a vision of what he wants to do, and he's really excited about getting going on it. And I think it's great. I think with Ryan being appointed as the head coach, I know him not great, but in the past, I should say, we've crossed paths. We coached Lethbridge a couple of years in the AMBHL against each other, and then various Hockey Alberta programs. He's a great guy, and he's young like us and enthusiastic, and I think he's got a lot of really, really good ideas. And so I think just the transition more or less is just what we're kind of preparing for with the Royals as well, is just getting that aspect of adjusting to more uncertainty at the midget level with guys going to junior and doing this and doing that. There's just more or less things that you just are unsure about where guys are going to land up and really how your team's going to look. So just kind of doing what you can. I think we're so early in the process right now, and with the state of the world in this pandemic, there's so many uncertainties and so many more questions of what even is going to go on. So we're so early in the process still that I think there's going to be lots coming up. And then probably in the next couple of weeks is what it sounds like, of really getting things ramped up and just planning to start September 1, hopefully, and just doing everything you can to just try to act as normal as possible. So I think as the process goes on, I'm super excited, and I'm going to be running the defense and running one of the special teams, probably the penalty kill. So I'm really looking forward to really specializing on the back end and specializing on the penalty kill there, and then just doing what I can to support Ryan and Jarvis Bender's on our staff as well, which will be great. And then just trying to learn and adjust and wear a different color on the logo on the jacket will probably be the weirdest thing, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be an exciting challenge with the midget triple level, and looking forward to them. Just looking forward to creating new relationships with new players, new parents, new board members, even with Ryan, right? Like I said, I know him a little bit, but I don't know him overly well. But I think it's gonna work really well as a staff, and then with Jesse kind of overseeing everything. I think it's gonna be. I'm really looking forward to it. When it came up, there's a couple other things kind of floating around, but at the end of the day, I kind of had that pegged as my top option. And once Jesse told me that it was Ryan who was the head coach, it was kind of, okay, just give me a little bit more time to go through some things. And then at the end of the day, the level, like you said, is where I want to be. And I think being an assistant coach is good. Kind of what advice from you, kind of just learning the league a little bit is good. And then just kind of continue to grow and develop and take my time, just like what you said.
Yeah, I think I spent 2 years as an assistant coach there in that league with Drader and Mando, and I learned so much. I don't think I'd have been able to do a job that well without that experience. So I think it's good to, just go learn the league, learn the program, and I think you guys are going to do a great job. I couldn't be happier to hand the reins off to Ryan and yourself to take that over. I think you guys will do fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, a couple, just some last questions here. So what else outside of coaching? Obviously, you put a ton of time in to coaching. It's a volunteer position for the most part at the levels that we're at. So what else do you do to kind of keep yourself afloat and stay?
Yeah, well, between coaching and work, it keeps me busy. So working with Symon Breweries, formerly with Wild Rose. So things are a little different right now with everything going on, but keeps you busy with events and stuff like that. Being in the hospitality industry is kind of also not a 24-hour job there. Been really fortunate that they love that work-life balance, but there's just things always going on, right, with events at evenings and weekends and stuff like that. So between work and hockey, those are probably the two busiest things that keep me busy, but just trying to balance everything. I think that's probably been the biggest thing that's kind of been good out of the transition from the Royals, is just I knew I needed to balance my life even a little bit more with hockey and work, just with my life and girlfriend and friends and family and all that. I think you miss out on things with being so committed to hockey. I'm going to put hockey even more. I think there's more time spent in the evenings and weekends at hockey than there is work and other things. So I think that's one of the things that I've kind of tried to balance a little even better, and I want to try to do a better job of. But I don't know, friends for sure is a huge part of my life. Family, I got a couple older sisters who have some kids, so being an uncle to some young nieces and nephews is a lot of fun, and they're hilarious in everything they do. So spending time with family, nothing too crazy out of the usual, but I think, like I said, just trying to balance everything. And you love the game, you don't want to get out of the game, so I definitely don't want to do that, but just balancing those aspects is tough, but you definitely want to make time for everyone and make time. At the end of the day, it's just benefiting yourself. So trying to do that.
It is tough, and you learn time management skills pretty quickly. I think, and I've tried to make the good out of the last couple months here. And I went home last weekend and realized that was the first time I'd been home since March or April of the year.
Where's home?
Vegreville, outside Edmonton. So then I just thought coaching, it's a full-time thing almost in the off season, and then you're in season. Other than when we would go up and play in Edmonton, I would never see my family. So it is tough to balance that, and it's a tough lesson to learn. I know it's hard on wives and girlfriends too, especially when you put in that much work, and it's a volunteer position. So you have to have a
Yeah.
real full-time job on top of it. It's hard. And I don't think that it's something that parents necessarily sometimes fully appreciate or understand, is the time that these coaches put into what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's all on your own.
Yeah. No, I agree with that for sure. And I think that's what, with your situation, what happened last year, and not being back with the North Stars, and me not being back with the Royals, that's probably the biggest thing I take away, is all that commitment, right? There's lots of people that started to understand how much work yourself and me were putting in behind the scenes. That's how our reputation was kind of building with the program and stuff like that we're trying to build, right? And for it to kind of be taken all away and just kind of be like, oh, that kind of sucks, but it
Yeah,
is what it
no,
is,
it is
right?
what it is. It's all part of the process. So,
Yeah.
last question, a little bonus question: best player you've ever coached? I stole this one from Tyler Fiddler. He asked me, and I hated it when he asked me, but I like
Yeah.
asking everybody else that one.
Yeah. Who'd you answer?
For me, it was. I've been pretty lucky. Like, having anytime you coach in the Buffalo Association, you're going to coach some good
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
And like we had like Nick Merkley, Braylon Schmear, like Riley
Yeah.
McKinstry, the Olsons, Matt Phillips,
Yeah.
Riley Sutter, Jared
Yeah.
Gorley.
Do you have
Uh,
a point?
what's that?
Do you have a point?
No, I was the year
Or
after.
no? Year after.
Logan Thompson, like it. Oh, like Carson Turinsky, who plays in
Yeah.
Philly.
Yeah. List goes
There's
on.
so many. Like I've been so lucky. And then even with the North Stars, like we had Zach Hayes, Braden Tracy,
Mm-hmm.
um, Marcus Nguyen last year, a coin.
Yeah.
So I've been pretty lucky. But
Yeah.
I think I said Tracy or Phillips, but Merkley would be
Yeah.
good too. So
Yeah. Tracy, we had on that Alberta Cup team on Calgary North, and
mhm.
a great kid, great player. Definitely talented. So good to see his success. Mine, it's tough. Obviously, this past year, we had such a good team, and we only had 2 drafted, which was surprising. But obviously, in Oring, having him for 2 years was incredibly special. To see his growth, his maturity on and off the ice for 2 years. You don't get that privilege much in quadrant hockey, to have a kid back to back years. Obviously, you're privileged at the Bantam AAA level or the mid AAA level, like yourself, where there's more of an opportunity to maybe have a kid back to back. But he definitely comes to mind. Owen McNeil from 2 years ago, obviously playing in Spokane this past year. He comes to mind just for everything he did on and off the ice. His maturity, his professionalism. I'm not surprised he's in the WHL at 16, and I think even looking at Oring this year being a third round pick with Winnipeg, the future's I think it's an absolute steal for everything that kid
Yeah,
is, and
I thought so
as
too.
he is as a person and his skill. I know he's undersized, but he has a heart of a champion and stuff like that. So those two come to mind for sure when I really think about it. But there's lots of good people in the past, and then last year, Matteo Denis and Andrew Basha were outstanding this past year. And then looking past, I think I mentioned them already. Chase Wheatcroft was a privileged coach. Reese Bentham, I can't say enough about him as well. I'm so excited for him to be in Cranbrook next year with the Bucks on that new team in the BCHL. So I think he's going to do incredibly well. But I think those are the few guys that come to mind. But same with you, just so privileged to coach
Yeah.
so many good people, Warren Marcotte, and even last year when we struggled, some really good kids, Sam Lawson and guys like that, where they're good kids and good people. So you just really hope for the best for them. But if you're talking about just best player, I would have to, between Owen McNeil and Aiden Oring, that's a tough competition between the two.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities in those guys, but in the
Those
Alberta Cups, obviously too, real fortunate with Craig
yeah.
Armstrong and Braden Tracy and that team central. Like, we would have been more disappointed if we lost, and excited that we won, because we were that
That team.
stacked, right?
Yeah.
We were just unbelievable, and from top to bottom, goaltending with Drew Sim, and on the back end, Charlie Wright. We call him the Wizard because he was just so good, and we were just stacked, right? So, really fortunate to coach so many good guys and coach with so many good people. That team central was a lot of fun with Tyrell and still keep in touch with Tyrell these days. And I think that's probably my biggest thing that you've already mentioned, that as much as you're in kind of competition with the CSSHL teams, is you know how good of a job Jeff Shantz is doing at the edge. You know how good of a job Matt Dissoni and Tyrell Spitzer's doing at NEX, that when players go there, we lost a couple years ago with Nick Wolfenberg and Adam Hamilton, and then those are two great players as well. And then NAX they had Spencer Borsos in their program last year, and just they've got some really good kids. And at the end of the day, when I've talked to those parents and players about it, and then talked with Tyrell and talked with Jeff, like, it's just passing on, like, you're going to a good program, so like go and have fun, enjoy it. So it's been awesome to be able to keep in touch with Tyrell, and like I said, we had a blast on that Team Central in that Alberta Cup, because we were so many good players, but more importantly, so many good people, because that's so important in the game today, and makes your job that much easier as a coach.
No, for sure. Right on, buddy. Really appreciate the time. That was awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Okay. Well, talk later, buddy. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah.
Bye.